In almost every group, there is a person who speaks less than the others. While conversations move quickly from topic to topic, while opinions collide and laughter fills the room, this person remains mostly silent. They listen. They observe. Occasionally they nod or offer a short response, but they rarely compete for attention. To some people, this behavior appears strange. In a world that rewards visibility and confidence, silence can easily be misinterpreted as insecurity or social discomfort. But human behavior is rarely that simple, because the person who speaks the least in a group is often the one who sees the most. The Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung believed that human interaction is shaped not only by what is expressed outwardly, but also by what is perceived internally. Every social environment produces an invisible psychological landscape where signals of status, intention, and emotional stability move constantly between individuals. And the person who speaks less often has the advantage of observing this landscape without constantly revealing their own position. Most conversations move too quickly for people to notice these signals consciously. When someone is talking, their mind is occupied with what they want to say next. When they are waiting to respond, they are focused on preparing their reaction. In both cases, their attention is directed outward. But the quiet observer experiences the interaction differently. Without the pressure to perform socially at every moment, they have more cognitive space to watch how others behave. They notice patterns: who interrupts others, who seeks approval, who subtly controls the direction of conversation. Over time, these observations create a detailed map of the group's dynamics. And once someone understands those dynamics, their influence can become surprisingly strong. Because influence does not always belong to the person speaking the most. It often belongs to the person who understands the environment the best. But silence in groups does not always come from the same psychological source. Some individuals remain quiet because they feel socially anxious or uncertain about their place in the group. In these cases, the silence is defensive. It protects them from judgment or rejection. Their attention is not focused on observation, but on self-consciousness. They are thinking about how they appear to others rather than about the dynamics of the conversation itself. But there is another type of silence that looks similar from the outside, yet functions very differently. This silence comes from psychological self-sufficiency. Individuals who possess it do not feel an urgent need to fill every conversational gap. They are comfortable allowing moments of quiet to exist. They speak when they have something meaningful to contribute, rather than when social pressure demands it. The difference between these two forms of silence is subtle but powerful. Defensive silence shrinks a person's presence in the group. Observational silence often strengthens it. This is why many leaders, strategists, and influential thinkers throughout history were known for speaking less than others expected. Their silence was not a sign of hesitation. It was a sign of control. Control over their attention, their reactions, and the timing of their words. Jung believed that psychological maturity involves developing a certain distance from immediate emotional reactions. Instead of responding instantly to every stimulus, the mature mind creates a small space between perception and action. Within that space, awareness grows. The quiet observer often operates within this space naturally. While others react quickly, they pause. They watch. They allow more information to emerge before deciding how to respond. This delay can appear passive, but in reality, it often produces more accurate understanding of the situation. Over time, this understanding becomes visible to others. When the quiet observer finally speaks, their words tend to carry unusual weight. Not because they speak loudly or dominate the discussion, but because their contributions are often precise and relevant. The group senses that this person has been paying attention in a deeper way. And attention is one of the most powerful signals of intelligence and authority the human mind can detect. There is also another psychological dynamic at work. People are naturally curious about what they cannot easily read. Someone who constantly expresses their thoughts becomes predictable. Their emotional reactions are easy to anticipate, but the quiet observer reveals very little. Their internal state remains partially hidden. This ambiguity creates a subtle form of psychological gravity. Others begin projecting assumptions onto them. They wonder what the quiet person is thinking. They become more attentive to their reactions. And in doing so, they grant them a form of influence that the quiet observer never directly requested. However, this dynamic carries a risk. Silence can easily be misunderstood if it is not accompanied by visible presence. If the quiet person withdraws completely from interaction, others may interpret the behavior as detachment or disinterest. Influence emerges not from silence alone, but from the combination of silence and awareness. The individual remains engaged with the group while choosing carefully when to speak. When this balance appears, the social environment often responds in a surprising way. Conversations slow down slightly when the quiet person begins to talk. People listen more carefully. Their words are not lost in the noise of constant discussion. Instead, they stand out. This pattern reveals something important about human psychology. Influence is not determined solely by how often someone speaks. It is shaped by the timing, clarity, and intention behind what they say. The quiet observer understands this intuitively. They recognize that silence is not empty, it is space. Space to notice what others overlook. Space to process information before reacting. Space to choose responses rather than being driven by impulse. In modern social environments where communication is constant and attention is fragmented, this ability becomes increasingly rare. Many people speak simply to maintain visibility. They respond instantly to every stimulus. They fill every pause with words. The quiet observer operates differently. Their presence is calm rather than reactive. They do not rush to prove themselves in every interaction. And because of this restraint, their words often travel further when they finally choose to speak. Over time, the group begins associating their voice with clarity rather than noise. And this association quietly reshapes the social hierarchy. The quiet observer does not dominate the conversation. They influence it. They do not compete for attention. They attract it through selective engagement. And without ever announcing authority, they gradually occupy a position of subtle power within the group. Because in a world where everyone is trying to be heard, the person who knows when to remain silent often understands the conversation better than anyone else in the room. Stay sharp.